Hello. Now, today we're going to get into some really meaty mathematics. We're going to get it into where we're going to start bringing ideas together that we've been working on separately for a little while. But before we can jump into that, we want to have a quick discussion about something called indices. An indice is also called a power or an exponent. They have three names. That's just because maths has been around for a while and we pick up names over time. So indices is what we're going to call them for now. And I'm going to show you some examples of indices. So if I have 5 and I multiply it by 5, I know that my answer is going to be 25. Now if I'm just multiplying two 5s together, that doesn't get so annoying. But say I wanted to multiply a bunch of 5s together, I wouldn't want to have to write out 5 by 5 by 5 by 5 by 5 by 5 and so on. So there's a shorthand way of writing out when we're multiplying the same number by itself a bunch of times. And that is to write 5 with the indice 2. That little 2 up in the right hand corner, it has to be written small and up in the right hand corner, means that I'm multiplying 5 by itself twice. If I took another example, we'll say 3 by 3. That would equal 9. Now I'm multiplying 3 by itself twice. So that's going to be 3 to the indice, or we often say to the power of 2. Now for reasons that we're going to get into later on, we often call that 3 squared or 5 squared. And some of you may be able to picture in your heads what a square is and figure out why we might call that squared if we look at what we're multiplying together. But we can also get stuff like 2 by 2 by 2. Now we've multiplied a number by itself 3 times. So what would that be? That would be 2 to the power of, or to the indice of, 3. Because I've multiplied 2 by itself 3 times. And that is going to end up being 8. Because 2 by 2 is 4, by 2 is 8. So that's what our indices mean. We're going to spend lots more time with them in the future, but that's the introduction that we need for now. This little number in the top right hand corner tells us how many times we've multiplied the number by itself. And that's our idea of an indice or a power. Now let's have a look at some examples. Now let's have a look at what we are going to use with our examples, I should say. So in primary school, you might have come across some version of this, but it's likely to have been a little different. So let's go through it carefully. Bimdas is how we pronounce this word. Bimdas is how we pronounce this. And it tells us the order in which we're going to do our operations, the order in which we're going to do our sums. And it allows us to do much more complicated sums than we've done so far. And it is extremely important. You're going to be using this in the background all the way through the time that you do maths. So let's have a look at the first one. Brackets. We know what a bracket is. Here's an example of brackets in a sum. You can see that if we have 3 up in the right hand corner is where we're looking at now. 3 with a multiplied by, because the 3 is outside of our bracket, and we're going to have 3 multiplied by 2 minus 1. So there's stuff going on inside of this bracket. That's the first thing we always try and do, tidy up anything that's happening inside of our brackets. The next thing we want to have a look at is indices. And indices, again, is just what we were talking about. It's the powers numbers, the little numbers up in the top right hand corner. The rest of them are a lot more familiar. It's multiply and divide. We know what multiply and divide are. Add and then subtract. And I've put little brackets next to multiply and divide and add and subtract because the order in which we do these isn't actually terribly important. You can do division before multiplication or multiplication before division, and likewise once you've got your multiplication and division done, you can finish off with bits of adding and subtracting in either order that suits you. So always, always, always we are going to tidy up our brackets first and then do our powers or our indices, and then we can do our multiply and divide, add and subtract last. So now we're going to have a look at some examples. So our very first example here, we have 3 to the indice or to the power 2 plus 2. Well, if I go to Bimdas, what am I going to do first? I'm not going to do this addition first because it's all the way down here. I'm going to start and see, do I have brackets? Nope. Do I have indices? Yes, I do. I have 3 to the power of 2. That's an indice. So I'm going to have 3 to the power of 2 means I'm multiplying 3 by itself twice. And I'm going to write that down because I need to practice it for a little bit. So 3 by 3 is what 3 squared, or what 3 to the power of 2 means. So now I have 3 by 3 is 9 plus 2, and then 9 plus 2 is 11. So that's my first answer. And you can see again the structure I'm using. I'm writing down all of my sum each time in neat lines underneath each other, and I'm linking them together with equal sign because this line is the same as this line. I've just done a bit of multiply. Next sum, I have 16 divided by 8 plus 5. Again, what's my order? Well, I use Bimdas. Do I have brackets? No. Do I have indices? No. Do I have multiply? No. Do I have divide? I do. So I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to look at my division and I say, how many times does 8 divide into 16? It divides in twice. And I still have my plus 5. I haven't done anything with it, so it stays along. Now I'm just left with addition. And now I'm able to do that. 2 plus 5 is 7. And that's my answer. So you can see as we're going through these, each little step is very, very simple. We might need a little bit of practice with the indices, but you can see that they're manageable. So these look like big sums, but they're made of little bits. And if we can do the little bits, we can do the big sums. So long as we keep our heads, we don't panic, we're going to be able to keep track of what we're doing using Bimdas, and we'll do a little bit each time. And so long as we focus and follow our steps, we're going to be able to get through, no matter how complicated it gets. But we have to focus and we have to do a little bit at a time. Now, let's have a look at this one here. So I know that brackets, if I have a number next to a bracket, it's going to mean multiply. I've been doing that with multiply for a little while now. So I have multiply that I know I need to do, but I look here and I see I have stuff in a bracket. I have 3 plus 6 and it's in a bracket. So even though this is addition, my brackets here mean that I'm going to have to do this first, because when I look at Bimdas, I can see brackets are the very top of the list. So I have to do brackets before I do anything else. So let's tidy up what's in our bracket. So I bring down my 2 is still here, and I have 3 plus 6 is 9, and I still have my equal sign. So 9 multiplied by 2, again this is multiply because I have 2 next to a bracket. So anytime I'm sitting next to a bracket it means multiply. So 2 multiplied by 9 is going to give me 18, and that's my answer. And you can see again I'm writing down the sum one step underneath the other. Now let's look at this one. This has a huge amount going on, but we can manage it. So we're going to do our brackets first. So we get 3 multiplied by 4 plus 3. 2 minus 1 is 1. Now I just have some multiply. I have 2 bits of multiply to do here. So 3 multiplied by 4 is 12, plus 3 multiplied by 1 is 3. And then 12 plus 3 is 15. And that's my final answer. And again, I did my brackets first, then I did my multiply. There was no indices to do. And then I did my addition. So each step isn't a big thing. It's just that I need to keep my head and follow the Bimdas steps, and it will become very normal and very comfortable for us over time. But we have to not panic. We have to focus on our Bimdas and focus on doing a little bit each time. Now, here again, I've got a bracket. So I'm going to deal with the bracket first, but this bracket's a little bit more complicated because this bracket has an indice in it. So I have 5 multiplied by 4 squared. 4 squared would mean 4 by 4. It means 4 is multiplied by itself twice. So I end up with 4 by 4 is 16 minus 5. Now I can finish up tidying up my bracket. I have 16 minus 5 on my number line. If I get stuck, I can go 5 places smaller. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I end up down at 11. And then 5 multiplied by 11, a number outside a bracket, means that I'm multiplying. I end up with 55. And finally, we have this one here. Lots of complicated looking bits, but we're going to do a little bit each time. What part do we do first? Brackets. So we're going to do what's inside the brackets first. And then when I look inside the brackets, I have subtraction to do here, but first I have to do my indices. So 9 all over 3, equal sign I should have there. 12, and then minus 2 by 2. 9 over 3. 12 minus 4 equals, then I have 9 over 3. 12 minus 4 is 8. Again, I can go to my number line if I need to. 12 and I'm going to get 4 smaller, so 1, 2, 3, 4 brings me down to 8. Now I've done my bracket. I want to come down here and I have some multiplication to do and I have some division to do. Well, let's get our division done first. So I'm going to draw a line down here. And I have 9 divided by 3. So how many 3's are there in 9? There are 3. And I'm left with 3 multiplied by 8 is 24. And I know that from my times tables. So you can see even in a really scary looking sum like that, we're able to do our bits step by step, and we are able to keep our heads. We're able to follow Bimdas to keep track of what order we need to do things in, and we're able to do our sums. So what we've looked at today is indices, which is the little numbers up in the top right hand corner telling us how many times we multiply the number by itself. And then we looked at Bimdas that tells us the order for doing these fancier, bigger sums. And we now know how we're going to keep track of the order of things. And we know that if we do a little step each time and we follow Bimdas to keep track of what we do first, life is going to be very manageable. So we're going to be practicing these now.